Hey guys, welcome to another COVID edition of Tables, Athers and Chairs. This week I've got my first promoter with me as a guest. It's Riptide's Josh Bevan. Josh, how are you doing, man?
Hello, mate. I'm good. I'm good as can be. I'm in fine spirits, actually. Yeah.
How are things down on the south coast at the minute? Are you having many people strolling along the beach?
Well, I couldn't tell you, Athers, because I've not been to the fucking beach because it's a lockdown. And people shouldn't be on the beach. No, I say that like the government mandated walk that I've been enjoying has been on this. I'm out a little further from Brighton, a little town called Saltdean, and we have an undercliff walk here that has been busier and busier, but it's one of those things where I don't know how much I can criticize that, because obviously I'm down there having the walk. So there's so much that I've wanted to do for a really long time in terms of organizational structures, in terms of just like peripheral bits to do with the business that we just just never had the time and the focus to do whilst in a cycle of delivering live shows. So there's things like working with Tom West of Riptide to retrospectively subtitle all of the shows, which is something that we've been subtitling promos for a while now, but our last show, The Storm, was the first one where we had all of the in-ring subtitle, which is something that I've wanted to do for the whole time, and yes, that's an accessibility thing, obviously, for people that have hearing impairment, or maybe people that have auditory cognition issues, and maybe people whose English isn't their first language, just actually for anyone, right, to just be able to absorb the content a little bit better. And when it's character work and reactionary stuff that's going on the dialogue in the ring, I just think that's valuable for absolutely everyone. You learn a lot at a fast rate, or seemingly a fast rate, a lot of information without that much time to assimilate it, because because you have to book stuff in, obviously, events, right? You have to book stuff in advance, and you have to book wrestlers in advance, otherwise their availability will get snapped up, and these kinds of things. So you're having to make commitments with information that will be old by the time those commitments are there to be fulfilled. So in terms of look, I'd rather be running shows than this lockdown. That said, it is nice to be able to have a little bit of time and space around these things, just to maybe do some, I guess you could call finishing work on stuff. Last 10% of stuff, and just generally just think about what we really want things to look like when we come back, I guess.
Obviously, with you promoting a wrestling company, you're obviously a fan. What's your earliest memory of professional wrestling?
Earliest memory of professional wrestling was, I think, some toys that had worked their way into my brother's possessions. We were never allowed to watch it as little kids. 3 brothers. I think that's something that our parents didn't really want us watching, just because they didn't want us copying and fighting and all of that stuff, really. Because the kind of age I was, by the time all those stars left, in The Rock and Austin, The Rock and Austin, basically, isn't it? But by the time they weren't around was when I was moving into 13, 14, 15, 16, and had other stuff I wanted to be doing, and then yeah, it was a big old break from that point on. But that's the early side of things, yeah.
And what brought you back after that big break of watching wrestling?
I was very, very. I was very unwell. I was suffering with a lot of kind of career induced, I guess you'd say, like depressions and anxieties and OCDs. And one of the things that I found was listening to, like, I don't know what got me onto the Steve Austin podcast, but I mean, it was really well advertised, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I must have been listening to some podcasts, and you're like, oh, the Steve Austin podcast, cool. So I start listening to that, and immediately I could find that, you know, that as a freelance performer, there's a lot of commonality between the life of a wrestler, right? You know, so I could listen to Austin or these other wrestlers talking about their experiences on the road and all of that stuff and how that is, and I found a lot of commonality in that, and I could think about creativity and I could think about performances from you know, in terms of working out that part of my brain, whilst also finding like a certain I don't want to say camaraderie, that's the wrong point. You know, I identified with these experiences, and that legitimized my own feelings. Now, if I was listening to a musician, a successful musician, or doing a similar podcast, I'd have just been jealous about their success. Do you know? But it was close enough to give for there to be something that, like, I was able to help me to my experience, but it was far enough away that I wasn't comparing myself with these people. So from there, I started watching it again. Because I was a self-employed musician. I had Sky Sports. It was on in the day, and I remember just like thinking, fucking hell, this is so boring, but this is all I've got to watch. You know, just all these big, long fucking Triple H Authority promos, and then some more adverts, and then back to the promo, and then some adverts, and then back to the promo, and then some adverts. And it's just like, this is boring. But I managed to train myself to put up with it, to start consuming the wrestling again. On Facebook, someone that I knew from just a music scene, Mr. Tom West, who's very, very involved in Riptide, you know, has been working with the whole thing from the beginning. There was a house show in Brighton and he couldn't make it, and was selling his tickets. So like, I was like, yeah, I think it's probably gonna be a bit weird. Like, there's not gonna be any commentary. What's it gonna be like? Who's gonna be there? I was really apprehensive. And at the time, I had a share of a season ticket at the Arsenal. And it was a very, very toxic time. And I'm just like spending all this money to go up there, to be made miserable, and to have some dickhead behind me shout abuse of Wenger, who I loved. And I just, you know what I mean? Like, I just, it was not a pleasant experience, right? And then so I go to this show, and bloody hell, it's loud, it's exciting, it's funny, it's like, it's, you know, live wrestling, just like live comedy, right? Just like live anything. When it's live, it's just right there in your brain. So I was like, man, this is awesome. And wow, they've sent me home happy. They've sent me home with the result I wanted. So I then started going to more and more WWE shows, more house shows and live shows. And then after a while, you start, you know, you're like, okay, there's a bit of a pattern here, and this is what it is. And it was getting slightly less appealing. And then through the podcasting stuff, I find out about Lucha Underground, and I'm just like, fuck, like, it doesn't, you know, it's a very common thing of people that are only exposed to like corporate wrestling, is that they think that anything that isn't corporate wrestling is obviously going to be a bit sad and a bunch of no-hopers, and it's going to be tacky, and it's going to be shit, and it's going to be all of these things. And then you see Lucha Underground, and like, it looks better. You know, it's not a shit version of the thing you don't like that much. It's a better version of the thing you don't like that much, which is, you know, like a WWE product. If you're a certain person, like, you know, whatever, they put lots of smiles on lots of faces. but for me at the time it wasn't doing it, you know. But still, there was not a single thought in my mind to go looking elsewhere, because I just was completely in the bubble of thinking that it was just bound to be worse. Matt Cross was wrestling for ICW at the Brooklyn Bowl in the O2 in December 2016, and you know, from his role in Lucha Underground, the Son of Havoc, I knew him, so that was the draw for me to go there. And then again, I had another experience where I was like properly just like I was in a small to medium-sized venue, a familiar world to me as a musician, and it just suddenly just all clicked into place that, you know, just like music, you have a pop product that's going to do a certain degree for, I mean, some people are going to fucking love it. It's like that's got a mass appeal, right?
Yeah.
It's got a mass appeal, caters for a large group of people, as large a group of people as it possibly can. But there are going to be some people it doesn't quite do it for, that smaller niche indie product is going to cater better for a smaller group of people, whereas a pop product is going to cater better broadly for a large group of people, right? It's got a larger set of parameters, whereas the other thing's got, and it just all kind of, and I think that's really where things kind of started to pop off in my subconscious about like kind of wanting to be involved, because I just kind of felt like, okay, now we're talking, like this is in my remit. But it so from then I started binging on going to indie shows. The first Riptide show was within about 6 months of my first indie show, because I just binged a bit. I was going to cockpit shows. I was going to I wasn't going to any progress shows because I couldn't get any tickets. So it's like, well, I don't know what that's all. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I don't know what that's all about because I can't get a ticket. I had to go to Birmingham, to a Birmingham show, I think, to get a ticket and kind of see what that was all about. I went to school with an indie wrestler, right? So someone that I went to school with was now an indie wrestler, and all of those times, all of that period of about 4 to 6 months where I was going to these shows, I'd have a few drinks, I'd come home, I'd have a little look in the mirror, and I'd be like, yeah, I mean, maybe I could, thinking about being a wrestler, right? Like looking at training and I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be like, that's a dumb idea. You've already got one aspirational performative career that's driven you mad. Like, you don't need another one. You're not very athletic. Turn it in, mate. The next morning, I was like, I'm going to start a wrestling promotion in Brighton, because as much as anything, I was really frustrated that it was so good and no one's got any chance of bloody well knowing how good it is. This is me as someone that 8 months previous to that was going to WWE shows and would have been hard to get me in to an indie show. And it was so recently that I wouldn't have given this stuff the time of day that I'm like, this is really frustrating, and it's so hard to get your mate to go up to a York Hall show that he'll love. Yeah. But he doesn't know he'll love it. And you're like, yeah, we've got to go up to London tonight. You've got to spend 50, 60, 70 quid on a round trip. But he's never going to know. He's never going to take that leap of faith. So it's like I knew that people like me that live in this town would love it. It's silly. I don't need to sell independent wrestling to someone that's watching this interview, I suppose. But I couldn't believe the gap between the expected experience and the actual experience of like a first time independent wrestler goer. So that was a big point of like tension, I guess, like in inattention with me, that was that we could release by doing a promotion. There was a certain, obviously what I mentioned here with me coming back and fucking flexing in a mirror is that there was a performative kind of instinct that had been stoked a little bit, and a bit of a frustration, I think, with some of the places I was going to. I was kind of frustrated to see performers not being supported adequately by the production. So you're like, this guy's on it, like this guy I can see in the ring is on a different level to everything around him, and it's not fair that the supporting framework is having to be carried and raised up by this person. And that's a big philosophy of what we try and do, is that, you know, I think that someone's brilliance and someone's skill and someone's talent and someone's professionalism deserves to not just be taking subpar conditions and making them into a par product. Like, why don't we give them par conditions so those attributes can be used to make an excellent product? If you think that, like, Riptide are doing things that, like, that not many other promotions do, there's a fucking reason. It's because I'm the fucking idiot that's willing to take the hit on it. And don't get me wrong, I believe very strongly that I will see a return on these investments. And, you know, not only are revenues going up, but costs are going down as I learn about the stuff that I didn't know about when I started. You know, as we become less reliant on bigger names, and we have more homegrown. I didn't grow them. Fucking Daryl Allen trained them. Do you know what I mean? And a fantastic job he did too, and continues to do with many of the top stars in the southern scene.
What was the first thing that, like, struck you that you had to, like, learn very quickly as a promoter? Because you were kind of going into this thing kind of blind, and like you say, it was like within 6 months you were, like, planning shows and doing your first show. What were the, like, main things? I didn't realise I needed to do that, and basically problems that you came across very quickly as a promoter.
I mean, I was coming at it from quite a privileged position of having an experience in other entertainment industries, alongside having someone on the inside that would smarten me up about things every now and then, you know. And this individual was told to by someone that's not in the business, not involved in the business anymore, was a slightly more old school person, was told to charge me a fee to take the book and to keep half the money himself.
Brilliant.
That was the advice given to this individual. Thankfully, he didn't take it. I mean, I'd like to think I might not have worn that, but he didn't take it, and he actually helped me. And there's a nice healthy promotion for everyone to get some work at now. You know, whereas if the get what you can while you can from people thing, but that's tough, right? That's tough. So let's break that down a little bit, actually, just because that's not the craziest attitude to have when such a high proportion of people that have become promoters are dickheads who want to order wrestlers around, who don't know what they're fucking doing in any sense of anything, and they throw a bit of money around and then they disappear. You've got to go into it respecting that you don't know, respecting that you're going to learn, you know, and some people do find it hard to switch from being a fan that knows everything, right? And it's like, well, I know everything to know because I'm fucking really into this. And it's like, well, actually, and this is one of the reasons why the relationship's so broken, in my opinion, is the industry hasn't been honest with you, right? Wrestling is the only industry in the world that will hide from you how hard it was to make something. Right? If you're going to a restaurant, right, and the ingredients are expensive and the ingredients are hard to procure, they're gonna be like, yeah, this fucking grass-fed, daisy raised, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Pearl dived, fucking gold mushroom or whatever. they're going to sell to you how hard that was for them to get to justify the premium that they're going to sell it to you for. In wrestling, the promotions seem to, there's this like want to be seen as omnipotent and like it's nothing, and like, yes, haha, like, you know, just this godly projection that they want to, that people seem to want to put out. And I get that that's like, you know, people trust competency and people but in the long term, I think that's definitely because you can't be like, we're, you know, I'm super all powerful booker man, ego trip, and then when shit hits the fan, no one's gonna feel and you're like, oh, feel sorry for me. They're gonna be like, no, you've told us that you were God this whole time. In terms of things that I was like, oh shit, I mean, I was trying to think back to that kind of time. I mean, I know that definitely, like, maybe if there's like wrestlers that don't get on, like, or just like wrestlers that aren't as nice as you'd think because of their character, you know, because they're playing like the interpersonal stuff can maybe be a shock when like you're someone that you really liked as a wrestler, as really charismatic and kind of friendly seeming, is like maybe a bit of a bellend to work with, you know. And that doesn't I'm not saying that their character's disingenuous or, you know, or anything like that's just people, you know. That's just people, man. Like that's definitely performers. Smack me in the face lessons. I mean, there's things like, oh fuck, we haven't got any steps down from the stage. So my old boy, the first show we did, my old man is absolute lifeblood of the promotion. Dr. David Bevan. He went and found some pallets that someone had fly tipped round the corner and knocked up some steps for them. I'm lucky no one put their foot through them and broke their bloody ankle. We didn't go into this being like cinematic independent wrestling. That wasn't we wanted to do. We wanted to like up the production values of things, and we wanted to like package things in a way that I felt was befitting to the quality of the work that was happening. And we wanted to bring in casuals with fringe benefits like nice beer and live music and just things that other things that people like, right? So that someone can convince their non-fan friend to come, and actually so the fan can have, wrestling fans like nice things too. Like you don't have to, well, I mean, you do at a lot of shows, but should you have to drink a fucking warm fucking Carlsberg if you want to drink? Like, you know, should you have to be somewhere that's not go to a venue that's way out of town? Like, should you have to do those things? Like, no, I mean, it's gonna cost me for that not to be the case, but that is what it is, and I do believe that I'll see a return on those investments. My mate Al, who works for Dave, like, I'm just like thinking, I'm just seeing them running around on these little DSLR rigs, making these music videos, making these bits and bobs that just look amazing, and I'm like, I swear that would work. Should we see what that looks like? So that was just meant to be like just some promo footage, and we didn't want to be disrespectful to the business, right? We didn't want to be like immediately think like, oh, we can come in and do this better. So we were like, okay, we'll get these guys, get this guy for some promo. We looked at the 2 bits of footage, and I'm like, I see Dave stuff, and I'm like, that and only that. If people are talking about the product, the video product, and you know, and it's designed, you know, we want it to be shareable, and we want it to be like talkable and all of that stuff. People just know you're there. Like, do you know what I mean? They just, and so you go on to the list of things they'll consider doing, whether or not there's a qualitative thing, whether or not there's other things maybe about the other ethoses of the promotion or the wrestlers or the storylines or any of that stuff, any of that other stuff, I should say, that the video style is a delivery system for. Even without those things, people just know They just know you're there. Like, all we've done is just take modern equipment, modern skills, modern styles, and apply them to pro wrestling. Right? You don't have to have seen Riptide to want to do that. Do you know what I mean? People can arrive at that them fucking selves. So, when with WWE starting to do stuff more like that, whether they've arrived at it themselves, whether someone's seen something, like whatever it is, I'm going, what took you so long? And I appreciate they're a big ship. It takes longer time to turn than a small ship. They haven't existed, and that's the thing with us as well. Like, if people say like, "Oh, your stories are better than this big company," or "your production's better than this big company," it's so much easier for us to do that. We don't have a fan base. We don't have anything to lose. I don't have to write fucking 10 hours of TV a week.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have to write 20 minutes of TV a week, and I don't even write that. We do what the wrestlers want to do. You hear people talking about, "Oh, I like the way this person is presented in Riptide over where I see them elsewhere," and it's like, that's the wrestler that wrestler wants to be.
Riptide gets, like, I think, kind of the unfair nickname of, like, the place for Brit Rest broken toys.
Sure.
And as you say, you obviously dictate who wins and who loses. But apart from that, do you think it's the freedom that the wrestlers are given, the freedom of creativity, that helps not only the wrestlers but your promotion itself?
100%, like, absolutely, 1,100,000,000,000,000,000,000%. Like, it's a very deliberate ethos that the people with the skills and the expertise are allowed to do so, and are given an environment in which to do so. I mean, I don't mind that nickname so much, because I think it's kind on us and it's kind on the workers. It takes blame off of them, because they've been broken by somebody. It's not that they were a shit toy to begin with. It's just that someone's not played with them in a way that is necessarily taking care of that toy. The thing that makes me laugh is just like when people are like, "Oh, you guys, you and Tom, who's very involved in the booking as well." It's just like, "Oh, you like Paul Heyman," and I'm just like, well, I see the compliment, but like, we fucking pay people, mate.
I knew that was coming.
Don't compare me too much to that bloke, because that's a bit of a worry, and you do worry. You're like, because it is. We do run tight margins. We do often lose money. Like, and then you have this these people say, "What's good about you is what's good about this promotion that famously pissed money and never turned a profit." And there are definitely times when I've been like, "Fuck, am I barking up the wrong tree here?" This is true, man. If you're at a Riptide show and you see something in the ring and you're like, "That is fucking brilliant. I wonder whose idea that was." It was the wrestlers. Our ideas are more structural. Our ideas are more pastoral and environmental and tone and those kinds of things. If we're talking story beats, talking detail, that's the wrestlers. Because as much as anything, they know not only what works for the story, but what's actually going to translate. So there's all sorts of things that I can think, "Oh yeah, wouldn't it be really cool if they did this, and it's got this symbolism, and it's got and it progresses this story, and it harks back to that, and it's like this and that." But it could be something that like just isn't gonna work, isn't gonna read to a live crowd.
You mentioned the ethos of the company. Brighton, obviously, very liberal place.
Sure.
I believe the only place that's got a Green member elected to Parliament. When you come in through the doors, there's a credos, there's a set of rules. Things like homophobia, racism, not tolerated, which shouldn't really need to be written down, but there you go. Also, probably not through design. You had people like Jack Sexsmith, pansexual, obviously now retired. You've got Cassius. It's a very open place. It's a very welcoming place. Would you like to go into detail a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, and when you say, like, you know, that those things shouldn't have to be written down, I think, you know, broadly with the audience, you know, obviously they don't have to be written down, right? But making those declarations, it's just like, it's about letting the people that believe that know where we stand as a company in terms of if someone is being abusive or is being problematic or hateful or any of those things like around them, they can know I'm not just going to go, come on guys, be nice. Come on, everybody, just be nice and not take a side on that. Like, we take a very clear side.
Zero tolerance.
You know, and I still think there's way more that we can do in terms of having available, like, because you got your grey areas as well, right, where someone's like just being disruptive through being a fucking smarky dickhead, right? And that's less cut and dry in terms of, you know, you're not just there to, you know, you can't just turf that person out for being hateful. You've kind of, and that's harder for that's a harder judgment call for the people that are around to kind of make, and how you talk. And we're constantly trying to tweak what we say in the announcer's spiel and that kind of stuff to outline kind of where that line is. If you think someone's a bad guy, give them shit. If you think someone's a bad wrestler, shut your mouth.
I think that's fair.
Keep it to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because no one's there for you to hear you project how much you know about wrestling. No one's there to hear you spout shit that is designed to make people impressed at your discerning taste. I go to wrestling shows, I bring earplugs with me in case I'm sat next to someone who irritates the fucking shit out of me. and at least like, and it's part of a risk of going to live events, you know. You're never gonna eradicate that. People can move for the next match. You know, you'll see on Love the Graps or whatever, people will be like, oh, I was sat next to some fucking dickhead, and so, but the second half was better because I moved away. It seems that, you know, I do listen to what people like and what they don't like, and broadly that kind of falls in, certainly with our audience, you know, the Brighton audience, you know, it's my fucking town, man. Like, there's a million twats like me in this town, and that's who I'm trying to make the wrestling for, you know. It's kind of simple as that. But obviously you're very welcome to come from outside of Brighton. Very, very welcome indeed.
How are you going to go forward after this whole unprecedented time? Because obviously wrestling will probably be one of the last things to come back, and quite rightly so. Is it going to be a case of possibly a few empty arena shows? Will we see the first ever Riptide Brighton Beach Brawl?
Oh, well, I mean, it's interesting. I think I have a few ideas. I have a few things that, like, we want to do or we could do or this and that, and I'm just not getting attached to anything, because as we spoke before going on air, like, we don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. We just don't know. We just haven't got a fucking clue, you know. I mean, one thing is you know, incredibly important to me, that it's going to be safe to do so, and I do not have full faith in the government that it will be safe to do so as soon as it becomes legal to do so. So there's a potentially tricky judgment call there, and I think you know, I feel lucky, like that we've been able to, if it is a really slow start getting wrestling back on, and if we're looking to hang back whilst other shows are running again, which I don't know. I don't necessarily know that will be the case, but that's a potential scenario. I feel very fortunate that we've sort of because I feel like we had a little level up on our last show, and to have kind of gotten that in and just generally be established at this point, to a certain degree. Certainly wouldn't consider us like a top 5 promotion in the UK, like at all. But I'd like to think we would get into a lot of people's top 10 in terms of their just the consciousness of the fan base, I suppose. So I don't think, I feel like we can hang back a bit if we don't feel like it's safe to. Obviously, as soon as we feel it's safe, we want to get back to running shows. We hey, listen, there's people that have bought tickets to a show, that we couldn't run, and by and large, those people were very were generous enough to keep those tickets in for when we're able to run that show, I'm conscious of that, in terms of as soon as it is safe for us to do so, we should, because people have kept hold of those tickets because they want to go to a show, so it's not like, I don't feel like we're like able to like fucking take it easy and wait in that regard. But in terms of, there's a further rush of, I don't think we're going to lose too much ground in terms of brand awareness and establishment and those kinds of things. If other people have started running before we do, and we don't, like I said, we just don't know what, maybe it would be safe for them and not for us to do, because of how, I mean, the empty arena stuff is not particularly attractive to me, from a product point of view. I think for us, like, empty arena is something that you'll see perhaps if we haven't been able to run a show for 2 years. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And don't quote me on that. Like, there are things that I would be happy to do in an empty arena setting, so maybe we would. But broadly, that's not particularly attractive to me for more reasons than it is attractive to me at this point. I don't know. There's some things I kind of can't tell you because I don't know, and then there's things that I can't tell you because I want to keep it under my hat.
Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Maybe a website where you could buy some merchandise?
Oh, lovely, Coral. And I think you maybe had the last. Let's have actually. Oh no, funnily enough, right, I pack a lot of merch in this room, so I do have. I got some nice. Hold on. Oh, so we've still got a couple of gold ones left here. Got a nice teal. As you can see, keeping it nice and labelled, lovely. RiptideWrestling.bigcartel.com if you want the actual link for the merch. But give it a look. There's a few pre-orders that we had that we've ordered some spares for. So like, you maybe can't guarantee you can't pre-order those shirts anymore. But if there was a shirt maybe that you missed, that you're like, bollocks, I missed it. Maybe once everyone's got their orders, we've still got some of our spares left, in case stuff gets lost in the post and that kinds of things. We'll be putting that stock up there, so you can keep an eye out on that for like shirts that are gone, because we'll put the spares up once we're happy that everyone's kind of received everything. Brett Jones illustrated posters. You can get a fantastic deal on a Brett set, which is by year. There's 6 illustrated posters from 2019. You can get them in a set for half price of the posters individually. And there's a couple of 2018 ones in a Brett set as well. Yeah, bring Brett Jones into your home, ladies and gentlemen. The After Party Podcast. Join MJ talking about. He reviews Riptide wrestlers. He runs down shows. He does other little features. You can get that on YouTube, Spotify, Acast, all of those places. Riptide After Party Pod. Sorry, Athers, you're talking about coming back down to Brighton, which I can't bloody wait for. It'd be good to see you, mate.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be too long. Josh, thank you very much for your time. And hopefully see you in 2021.
Yeah, hope so, mate. Lovely. Yeah, by then, surely. Yeah, I can't wait, mate.